Okay, this time I just got a couple of more words to say about the English trip. I want to talk about traffic courtesy first. There's a campaign which is essentially um, be nice to each other and not to the ruling powers, whichever you've got to um, agree with. That they persuaded us not to speak to strangers, not to walk about on your own, not to do this, not to do that, and above all, not to get on well with our friends, relatives, and neighbours by various means. So, as a token of defiance, it's become the thing to resurrect, I suppose you would say, perhaps in England to some extent, but to copy what, as far as I know, is an English idea on the roads, which is courtesy. Not just in the sense of obeying the rules, but for example, if you're traveling along very slowly, pull in to let the person behind you pass, or if a lorry passes you, you're on a motorway, give them a little flick of the headlights to tell them when they're clear of you, so they can pull in. And if you're the person that's passed, give perhaps just a flick of your rear lights to say, or a wave if you're in a car, to say thank you for letting me in, or even calling me past. Be very careful about calling people past. Make sure it is really clear, of course, and make sure it's clear before you go past, even if you've been signalled for safety. But a general courtesy to wave people out of a side junction into traffic. I've noticed on the trip to England that it had become less common, and it's become more common again. But I was absolutely astonished on my return to France to find that it's now here. I was called past by a lorry. I don't think it's ever happened in 15 years of being here before, as I can remember. Certainly not when I was in a car. So it's definitely catching on, and I think it's a good thing anyway. Courtesy on the road, but if you've got a just feeling behind it that we can be nice to each other, even if they are not nice to us. That's the first thing. Secondly, I'd like to talk about the Droitwich Museum that we also went to on the English trip, which it was, I don't know whether it was actually there or whether they just moved it there. The original radio, BBC Radio 4, as it became, I suppose it was the Home Service probably at the time, in the 1930s, that's broadcast on longwave from Wychbold. They had all the old equipment there, including sort of DJ equipment, if you like, which was with the old 78s, two record decks with two 78 singles. It was quite interesting to see, and that that brought to mind that during the war, the BBC was used, and probably that very place, to broadcast messages to the resistance on the continent with sort of cryptic messages, which reminded me that I'd mentioned in my bit about the civil defence how myself and Dad actually came top of a competition to invent a code for encrypting messages. So in a minute, I'll just give you a brief rundown of what it was, as best as I can remember it after all these years, that we invented, in case anybody wants to use a code, which of course has now been on here, but I don't suppose there's all that many people that will have seen it. But first, I was interested in the Droitwich Museum to see these cards here of their old railway advertising cards advertising trips to Droitwich, which are quite pretty, aren't they? And that one there. But also, Droitwich is very famous for salt. It's a big source of salt. This is a reconstruction from the first century BC of the extraction of salt in Droitwich. And from the 2nd century AD, this is a carnelian gemstone with a figure of Mercury holding a money bag. So it's in the Roman period. It's not very clear to see really, but there is a figure of the god Mercury, which the Romans considered to be equivalent of our god Woden. So I'll just show it to you there, which reminded me of my suggestion for sort of people's money. I know they're French, but they have very special property in that they have the god Mercury on them, if you can see. If you can. I've got 3 coins here. There's a 2, a 1 and a 50 centime. These were introduced after the First World War, when the state financial system had more or less collapsed because the money had become virtually worthless compared to the silver it was made of, and so it disappeared. And these were introduced by the chambers of commerce, by the people, if you like, the traders anyway, as a substitute for government money. And in my opinion, it's nice to have a heathen god. Interesting to see that they turned to a heathen god in times of need, albeit the Roman version, but then you have to come to some sort of universal agreement upon this. It is a version, nevertheless. It's the same principle as one of our own gods. It's a coins that still exist in considerable quantity, a few million, but which there'll never be any more of, because, well, they're 100 years old, near enough. And I think that if you want something of value, that's of more value than the actual writing on a computer screen in a bank, which could be wiped off tomorrow at the whim of, well, the government or the bank, or indeed some sort of attack by terrorists on the bank's computers, if you like. Then it could disappear tomorrow. Much harder to make those disappear. Somebody could perhaps steal yours physically, but they can't steal the whole economy's worth of money, can they? Just a thought. As regards the code, I'll explain it briefly. The idea was, first of all, to put a completely random word with just any letters, just not 5 letters long, and all letters, not any other symbol, not a number or anything. This was mainly there so that if you had a real problem, like you'd been captured, then you put a 5-letter word there, and that would indicate a real problem. Next, you put the date in the simplest form, like today is the 21st of March, so you write 213, 22, 1 and 3. It only causes a problem in November and December, where you simply put X1 at the end for November and X2 for December. You then put whatever the code is for the person that's sending it, if that's necessary, and followed by a word for the person you're sending it to, if that's necessary. And these had a completely different coding system to the rest of it, which I won't go into here. For the rest of it, the idea was to put AYE for I, as in I am, and ER for as in a pair. So there are no one-letter words because they're easy to spot. A two-letter word, you reverse the two letters. A three-letter word, you write in the second letter, the first letter, and then the third letter. A four-letter word, it goes 1, 3, 2, 4. That's the first letter, the third letter, second, and the fourth. And then for a five-letter word, it's the first letter, the third letter, any old random letter that you add to it, the second letter, the fourth letter, and the fifth. The sixth, it goes 1, 3, random, 2, 4, 5, 6. And then so on. You just add the 7, 8, 9 on the end as you go on. For six-letter words and bigger, you also swap the last two consonants over. So now you've got it moderately mixed up. You notice that because the random letter is added from five-letter words onwards, there is no five-letter word. So you can add a five-letter random word here and there if you want to, and apart from being the first word, elsewhere it just indicates nothing at all, so that people can waste time trying to decode it. Then, as regards altering the letters, it's relatively simple. For the vowels, A becomes U, E becomes O, and in both cases vice versa. I becomes Y, and we treat Y as a vowel for this purpose. Then you've got the date, so you should be able to work out the day of the week. If the message is sent on a Sunday, we swap S and N, as in sun. On Monday, M and N. On Tuesday, T and W, as in Q. On Wednesday, W becomes D, D becomes N, and N becomes W, as in Woden. And on Thursday, T becomes H, H becomes N, and N becomes R, R becomes T, Thuno. And on Friday, F becomes R, R becomes G, G becomes F, going round in a circle as in Frigga. And on Saturday, S and T are swapped. That just leaves us with B and P, which are swapped, C and K, J and I, Q and X, and V and Z. Now, whilst it sounds moderately complicated, it takes a little while to learn, but you can learn it. You don't need a crib or a chart or anything with you whatsoever. So on that note, I'll say bye.